I'm Shivani Gupta, and welcome to the Ask Shivani podcast. I believe that one of the best presents that you can give yourself is time to be able to sit down and ask yourself some questions. I believe that the quality of the questions that you ask yourself will determine the quality of your life. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Ask Shivani podcast. I am so excited to have a colleague, Rebecca Allen, whose podcast I was on recently, who is a career success coach. She helps ambitious women, managers, and early leaders land dream jobs and gain greater satisfaction from their careers. We spoke a lot about this word ambition, whether it's a good or a not so good word, and Rebecca does some extraordinary work for women that do have that ambition, and rightly so. She's got over 10 years experience and has helped hundreds of women achieve actual change in their lives and their careers, whether that's wildly growing in their confidence, expanding their influence, negotiating better salaries, boosting credibility, or landing well-deserved promotions. She is an internationally accredited results coach and NLP Master Practitioner, and is infatuated with growth mindset, which is so great that we're spending so much time talking about this, from schools to organizations. And when she's not coaching or building her business, she's out with the two kids, walking the neighbour's dog and plotting her next adventure. Very excited. She's in New South Wales, which comes out of lockdown officially today. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hooray for the end of lockdown. Thank you so much, Shivani. I'm so thrilled to be here today.
I'm so excited that you're here. Now, there's so many different things that you've done, Rebecca. I am so fascinated for our listeners to hear about some of your journey. One of the questions I'm always really fascinated about is your journey, both personal and business, because that's what makes us be successful women in business. But what do the major turns been? And some of those might be positive, some of them may be not so positive, but we'd love to hear more about them. So tell me more about them.
Thank you. Well, I suppose I was very grateful and very lucky to have, sort of fairly ambitious parents from the outset. And, in the early 80s, my father got an opportunity to move overseas. And, that was really unheard of in those days in the UK, to live anywhere outside of the UK, let alone to move all the way to Hong Kong, which is what they did. And it gave me this really kind of amazing opportunity. I look back on it now as an adult, and I'm so phenomenally grateful for that opportunity, because it was just the most positive experience it could ever have given me. It gave me the opportunity to get very comfortable with change, because change was such a constant. I think when you're an expat, you have to become really used to the idea of change and become really comfortable with it. It just becomes your normal, because people come and go all the time. Lots of kids change school really regularly in that environment. And you just kind of have to go with that and just see that as part of life. And I think being in that space really kind of gave me a massive insight into multiculturalism and how valuable that diversity really is. I mean, it really is such a powerful, facet to have in any group, whether that's a school group, a friendship group, an organization. Now I kind of look at that from an organization perspective, but I'd see that kind of comfort level, and I suppose you kind of yearn for it. You actually need the multiculturalism. Once you get used to it, you need that difference. You need that difference of opinion. You need that difference of perspective. And I think people become braver as a result of that. They become braver having those different sort of aspects and different perspectives to lean on. So I think that was a huge part of my growing up and my experience, and becoming kind of really interested in growth. And I went back to work in the UK once I'd finished school, and went to, live in a country that I was supposed to be from, but had no real connection to. It was kind of strange going back to live in the UK. It was very rainy. It wasn't that kind of tropical rain that you're used to in Hong Kong. It was that really cold, damp, drizzly, grey rain. And I really didn't feel like I fitted in. It was quite strange. And all my new friends were very English. Everyone was very white. And I found it very peculiar. I found lots of my Hong Kong friends had actually gone back to the UK as well for university. So I sort of would find them. We would get together a lot and see each other a lot. And so I'd have Sri Lankan friends coming to stay with me in Manchester, and Chinese friends coming to stay with me. And it was beautiful, and it's kind of where I felt at home, much more than being in Manchester. But again, it was more change, right? It was more dealing with something different and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and all those sorts of things. And I think it was around that time where I started to get really interested in personal development and professional development and started really reading around those topics. And I studied philosophy also. I never really understood why I did philosophy at university. And I think looking back on it now, it was because I wanted to challenge my thinking again and do something different. You know, my school had been quite traditional, and we hadn't sort of had those sort of opportunities. So I wanted, when I went to university, to study something different again. And that kind of critical thinking that you do in philosophy, I've suddenly realized is very like coaching thinking. It's that sort of trying to challenge the way we've always thought about something. It's that trying to think outside the box. It's like, if we see something as it is that really what it is? That's really what philosophy is all about. I studied metaphysics actually in my final year, and that's when it all clicked in my brain. I was like, this is me. This is completely how my brain is, you know? It was a really fascinating kind of organic experience. So I suppose, you know, a big change point again was when I swapped jobs. And initially I went into advertising because I'm very artistic, I'm very creative. That's kind of how I think. And initially I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. But there was always this thing again in the back of my mind that I needed to do something more sort of impactful on an individual. I think I couldn't sort of, I felt like I was, you know, by selling more Huggies nappies, or by selling more banking product, or by selling more, what else was I working on then? Oh, Pfizer, we were working on drugs and, you know, cough and cold products. It's like, if I sell more of these things, I'm not really making the impact I want to make. And that's when I decided to start investigating whether there was a career in this personal development thing that I'd always been interested in. And yeah, and I started to study it part-time while I was also working, and started to build my practice. And then when we moved to Australia in 2007, I just said to my husband, I think this is it. I think it's time. I think I'm going to go for this and just start really, you know, putting my money where my mouth is and really trying to make a difference with my coaching.
That's amazing. And that's amazing. And I loved your story about, you know, being able to be in Manchester and having Chinese and Sri Lankan and all these different nationality of friends,
wonderful.
right? Yeah, it's such a diverse way to live, to hang out with people from different places. Rebecca, what about challenges? You know, we all face challenges, and I'm sure you've had that, whether it's been in your business, which you've been now running for 13 years. I know you're a mum of 2 kids. Obviously, you've moved countries, all of those different things. And sometimes people have a process or a system or a ritual that really kind of helps them address it. So do you have one, or do you have ways that you go about dealing with it? Because, you know, so many of us face that. So one of the things I always want to understand and learn from, you know, for myself and also our audience, is how you cope with challenges. Tell me more about that.
I think the truth is, with challenge is, I think there's a few things. I think the fundamental thing is to become really accustomed to it, which basically means doing it. And I'm a big person for just sort of saying yes to opportunities and seeing what happens. You know, I always kind of think, well, you can say yes and you can always change your mind if it doesn't work. You know, you can say yes to a job, for example, and then if it doesn't work out, you can always do something different. It's not like it's the fait accompli. You know, you've always got choice. So I think my view is like, do it, say yes, try it out. If it feels uncomfortable, that's okay. That's part of the process. That's actually where you're growing. And I almost like enjoy that when you feel out of your comfort zone. I like problem solving. I think that's part of what it is. I think I like looking at something and going, okay, what are the kind of constituent parts of this thing, and how can I break it down to solve this challenge, whatever the challenge might be, whether there are emotional components or whether there are rational or practical components. But I think just by doing, we become more comfortable with doing it again and trying different things. I sort of don't see risk as a risk. I see risk as opportunity, and I think that's the sort of the difference, if you like. It's definitely not always been the case, but it's become the case as I've become more comfortable with change and accepting shifting tides, if you like. But I think I don't see sort of situations as risky, unless they're obviously, you know, physically risky. I just sort of say, well, look, it's an opportunity for as long as it's going to be an opportunity until it proves me wrong, you know, and if it turns out to not be the right move for me, that's okay. You know, nothing's been broken, nobody's hurt. I just have to decide to do something different. So that's the first thing. And then I think the second thing is around sort of depersonalizing things. I used to take things very personally in my youth. And, it could be anything. It could be something that somebody had said to you. It could be an outcome that you had. And you sort of say, well, what did I do wrong there? What happened there? What did I do? And I've realized over time that it's not actually about you. Most of the time, it's not about you. It's just about the steps that you took to get there that didn't get you to the right result. So you sort of depersonalize and you objectively look at the steps that you took to get there, right? And you can say, well, look, I've realized that these were the steps that actually created this result that I don't like. So what do I need to do? I just need to look at those steps and change the steps. It's not me that's broken, it's the steps that are broken. And I think that's a big part of that. It's just about sort of objectively looking at things rather than taking everything sort of very deeply and emotional, because as soon as you start doing that, it cripples you, right? You become inert and you become scared and you become fearful to try anything else. So I think that emotion becomes the biggest blocker. So the step before that for me is about, depersonalizing what's happened.
Absolutely. I know that you're coming out of lockdown today, or, part lockdown today in New South Wales and Australia. So what has it been like with the challenging of, how have you applied that with the kids and having to homeschool and do everything that you've been doing as well?
Yeah, I mean, talking about challenges, it's fascinating. The whole parenting world is a fascinating thing because nobody has any rule book, right, to give you to prepare you for this experience. And I remember actually asking my mum for some advice and some help. And she sort of said to me, you know what, you'll sort it out, you'll work it out. And I thought, what sort of help is that? What sort of advice is that? But she's actually right, because every instance is different. There is no rule book with childcare and becoming a parent. That was certainly a huge challenge for me when I first became a parent, because I was so invested in my business and so passionate about my work and so driven by what my clients were doing. And then this little person appeared and I thought, oh, it'll be fine. I can balance all these things and it will be fine. I'll be able to do everything brilliantly. And then, of course, I couldn't. I mean, it was nigh impossible. So you have to try to find those compromises around what your priorities really are and all those sorts of things, and being okay with that. It took me a while to become okay with that shift in my identity. It took me a long while. I think when you're a high kind of driver, a kind of high achiever, it's really hard to sort of take that step back. So yeah, I suppose that was my initial challenge with that. And then, like you say, this latest challenge with lockdown, it has been really fascinating, hasn't it, for so many people? I mean, we're so desperately lucky in many respects in terms of where we live. I mean, we're in Sydney. It's not exactly, a difficult place to be locked down. And, your 5K radius is always there's always beautiful places to go and explore. But yeah, of course, trying to homeschool a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, I have to say the 9-year-old's quite self-sufficient, but, it's challenging because again, you're trying to achieve in your own space, but they need you. I mean, the 5-year-old, my son, he needs me. And I'm also fortunate. My husband's very hands-on. And somebody was saying to me the other day, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't say that you're fortunate because your husband is hands-on. I thought, what do you mean? She said, you shouldn't sort of see that as lucky. That should just be the way it is. I said, but I am fortunate. I am lucky that he's that way. It's not some sort of feminism thing. I'm appreciative. I mean, he's appreciative of me because, I'm hands-on. I just thought it was, too extreme, too far. But I mean, lockdown has been a challenge, no doubt. But I think with anything, as soon as you have that end in sight, it helps, doesn't it? When you know that there's, you're coming out of it. And I think the thing that always makes me laugh, because I know one of my deep, deep values is control. And in this situation, we really have had very little. And that's been a huge revelation. It's always interesting when that value gets challenged for me. And yeah, I've really realized, you've got to let things go sometimes and just be in the moment. I think that's the thing that's interesting about the lockdown situation, actually, is that we have just been very much in the moment. We've been forced not to plan. We've been forced not to think beyond your nose, and, we've been in this space where you have to be content with the moment, right? And in many respects, that's been a really beautiful thing. I like that simplicity, and I like that focus that it's, you know, forced on many people to spend more time with their immediate families, which can be good for some people, not so much for other people. But in my situation, it's been beautiful. You know, we've had so much more time together around the table, and we're doing a lot of baking and that kind of thing with the children, and just going for the most tremendous walks in the park. And, you know, how beautiful is that?
Absolutely. And it's so funny you say that about somebody saying, you know, he's very hands-on, and somebody making a comment about your husband. I've had the same. And I think it's the perspective that you come from. I get why people are saying that.
Yes.
Because if you're coming from that space that, oh my God, you know, how lucky you are. I'm like, no, I'm not coming from that perspective. I'm just coming from a perspective of gratitude, because he's got a full-on career as well. And we,
Yes.
you know, when you've got both your, as you talk about the word ambitious in a good way, that we both got our own goals and things to set. So it's really nice. And I'm really grateful for the fact that we've got both of those things happening. So that's been raised with me as well. And I'm like, I'm pretty much a feminist, but I'm also really grateful for that as well.
Absolutely.
And
I
Rebecca,
think it's a partnership, isn't it? You know, I think if you're in a genuine partnership, that's what it should be. It should be being grateful for them being there, for who they are, and for all the love and the care and attention that they have for their children. Of course, I'm grateful for that.
yeah, absolutely. Tell me about future aspirations. What's any things that you're going, I haven't got to that yet, or I've started it, but, and, you know, sometimes they're like really lofty goals that are 50, 60 years, some are, you know, next 3 to 5 years. What are some of your future aspirations?
Sure. Well, I'm kind of living one at the moment, Shivani, because I've been talking for such a long time about creating product around, you know, what I do. And, you know, historically, I've always kind of done one-to-one coaching, private coaching, and also going into companies and doing coaching. And now that I have the children, you know, it doesn't work for me to do it completely dedicated to kind of one-to-one, you know, timeframes. So I've been building over the last 18 months, you know, a portal to be able to deliver career development courses. So that's now up and running. It's been live for a while now. And it's just so beautiful to see groups of women coming through our courses and, you know, working on their sort of purposeful career planning and creating those outcomes, and also on their personal branding. And it's lovely seeing those group environments happening, because not only do they get that connection with me, they also get the inspiration and the ideas and the support from the other women doing the courses. So that I'm super excited about. I'm very proud of that. It's been a long time in the planning, and it is just really nice to see. And it's like the best time for it to be happening now. We're coming out of lockdown again, hooray. And people are thinking about careers again. And then, so that's a huge thing. And then I have another big kind of thing in the back of my mind that I've had for a long time, which I call Go Girl Leader. And Go Girl Leader is essentially a sort of an inspiration platform, a mentoring platform for young girls. But it's not just about you know, mentoring from the perspective of seeing what women do in work. It's also about helping them build growth mindset, because I see that as such a big part of where, you know, a lot of women in their adult lives struggle, where they kind of doubt themselves, and they, you know, they question whether they're doing the right things, they belittle their achievements. And I can see it already with the young girls who I'm now, you know, I have a young daughter who's 9. I can see this kind of already happening. And one of my big goals is to actually build this as a kind of another opportunity to, you know, to work with women and young girls and inspire young girls.
I love that. Love that.
I thought you would, because I know this is one of your huge remits too.
Yeah, I love that. We need to talk about that more at another time.
We do.
Rebecca, tell me about leadership philosophies, leaders you admire, quotes, philosophies. What are some of the things that you live by?
Oh, wow, that's a big one. Well, leadership for me, I think, has become, like most things, has become very complicated, and probably unnecessarily so. I mean, for me, leadership is about, you know, doing two things well. It's sort of the rational side. It's the, can this person do the job? Can this person deliver results? Can this person, you know, hit targets? And then the emotion side, which is, can this person nurture? Can this person bring people through the ranks? Can this person really not just empathize, but show compassion for the people that they have in their teams? And we seem to have got the balance very wrong. And I think COVID somehow has come along at the right time, because it was all about the money, wasn't it, beforehand? It was all just about, burning people dry, coming to work and kind of just doing the work. And I think we've lost sight of life and what really matters to people, what people really care about. And some of the best leaders I have ever seen have had that amazing ability to actually care deeply about wanting to understand what the people in their team care about. That's a massive, massive part of leadership that seems to have gone awry somewhere. And we're starting to see some leaders to sort of talk about this, like Simon Sinek's one of those people who's talking more about this balance that is required. And since when did work become our primary focus? Why is it not that we have life and family and then work around that rather than the other way around? I've always thought that. I've never understood this. We must work ourselves to the bone, and then, for 5 minutes of the weekend, we'll have some family time. And that's partly down to organizations driving that, but it's also the individual. Like, you have choice. You can decide if that's okay for you. That, there are lots of organizations where that is not the case. I've talked to people who are at Salesforce, for example, and, they're very, very forward thinking in how they look at, treating people like human beings and people who have a life outside of work, and developing them and helping them really kind of nurture what they genuinely care about outside of work, So, leadership for me is the balance between those things. And I think if we haven't learned anything from this pandemic, I think it should be that, people genuinely need to be heard and for their values to matter.
Absolutely. I think this need to be seen, need to be heard, seems to be getting greater. There are people, particularly with mental illness, being, such a big thing in workplaces now too, around that. What about you? You give so much of yourself away, Rebecca. So what do you do for your wellness? What are some of the things you do, whether it's daily or monthly or yearly, to look after your own well-being?
Such a good question. It's probably the thing that I struggle with the most. I've got to be honest. And, my husband's the absolute polar opposite. He's very, very good at having routines and having, really kind of stepping up when it comes to his health and his well-being. And I should really probably follow him a little bit more than I do. I just get so engrossed in what I'm doing and I forget to look after me sometimes. I'm very good on the sort of mental side and on the self-care side in terms of how I talk to myself. That's kind of just from years of doing it and practicing that and listening into how I'm talking to myself, because I do think that is a huge piece of well-being in terms of how we see ourselves, and genuinely trying to stay in your own lane all the time, and just not comparing and not looking at other people, because everybody has different tracks that they choose, right? Everybody has different sets of goals, sets of inspirations, sets of values. And I think it's really important that you sort of define success for you and you stay in your own space and stop judging and qualifying yourself against what everybody else is doing, because they're on a different mission to you anyway. So it doesn't make sense to do that. But from a kind of downtime perspective, I do paint, actually. I do a lot of sort of just mindful painting and sort of chill out time, that kind of thing. I love just being by myself. I always have. This will make you laugh, because I met my partner, who is now, my long-term partner. And I'd already planned a trip to go overseas when I met him. And I thought, gosh, he's quite nice. He's quite special. I'm not quite sure, I'm going to go on this huge year away. And what am I going to do? So I just said to him, look, I'm going on this trip away. You can't come with me. This is my one, I'm going by myself. It has to be by myself. So you can't come, but I still really like you. So I'd love, for us to sort of stay together. And he said to me, you know what, if you're going to go backpacking, I'm going to go backpacking, but we'll just not go together. So we did, because I needed it, right? I had planned this thing out, and I'm a control freak, as I mentioned. So, I kind of planned this thing out and I needed this me time. And then we did actually meet up in the middle, oddly enough, in Sydney. And even then, we had such a lovely time together. And after a couple of months, I said to him one day, I said, I just need one of those days where I'm just by myself and just, not with anyone else, and just, wander around. I don't need to do anything particularly. I just need to not speak to anybody. I've often thought that maybe I'm an introvert in an extrovert's body. because I actually am very extroverted, but I need that introversion time. I need that thinking time and that processing time. And maybe we all do. But he's got it now. He understands. We've been together for 18 years or something. So he's like, I get it. You need that. Just go away, do your own thing sort of thing. So, I mean, I need that. And I do that. Yeah, I think everyone needs that sort of downtime.
I love that story. I love it. Like, look, I really like you, but I've got this, year planned and I'm off. So, and you can't come with me. I love that. He's like, hey, this woman is very clear on what she would like.
Yes.
But it's so true. I think, I'm an extreme extrovert, but I'm noticing as I'm getting older, the more pressures I have, or if I'm running multi-businesses, or as the kids get older and their sports and studies have got, more full on, I am needing more time out. Whereas I think I just ran on adrenaline, right, in my 20s and 30s. I just went, yeah, I'll be fine. Everything will be fine. Now I'm going, actually, I need to be a bit mindful. I can still keep going, but at some point I'm just going to burn out, where it's going to take me a few years to get back. So I'm just a bit kinder to myself, I think, now than I used to be.
Yes.
Whereas I'll be like, no, you're just going to push your way through all of this, which is not always possible. Rebecca, I have so enjoyed speaking to you. I'm loving some of the work you're doing. Tell me about how people can get in contact with you and follow you. To tell us about what's the best place we're going to find you.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed. I always enjoy talking with you, Shivani. So yes, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me, I'm Rebecca Allen Career Coach, I think is my handle on LinkedIn. You can find me, my business is illuminategrowth.com.au. You can find me there. You can also download a free, what do you call it? A tool, I suppose you'd call it. It's called the Perfect Pay Rise Script. So if you've ever struggled with negotiating salaries, if you've ever found that really difficult, if you've ever sort of felt like you're lacking a strategy when it comes to negotiating pay that you actually deserve, by the way, the actual appropriate pay for you, then the Perfect Pay Rise Script is the perfect opportunity for you. So you can actually just go to rebeccasfreegift.com and it's there. You can download it straight away and be negotiating with much more ease.
That's amazing, Rebecca. Such a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you.
And I just hope that as you come out of lockdown, that you really get to do all the things that you've been hanging out for. I know for me, the simplest pleasure of just going out for a nice coffee was so beautiful. So just wishing you all the best for now, and really look forward to staying connected. Thank you for being on here today.
Thank you, Shivani.
I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Ask Shivani podcast, where I got to ask some questions. Thank you so much for listening. Please follow Ask Shivani on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you haven't done so, please go to the Apple Podcast and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It would mean a lot. Thank you.